The Antichrist, global mind manipulation, aliens versus demons in a holographic world war, one unified government, the destruction of religion itself. This is Project Bluebeam. So I've already stated, this is going to be a massive rabbit hole of just insanity. And it requires a lot of what I'm going to call conspiracy stacking. It's like you have to believe one theory to believe another theory for the other theories to work. And I would highly recommend everyone to do their own research. And I also want to state that all this is in Minecraft. None of it's real. And this is totally made up. And I don't know what I'm talking about. Now, a lot of this information comes from the Educate Yourself website, which is directly written, if not contributed to, by Serge, and he is the kind of like proponent of this theory itself. I'm just kind of reiterating what he said. Oh, another thing, I'm going to be mentioning probably some names and or companies. It's not real. These are just other people's words that I'm relaying. I don't believe this. I want to live. If I end up on a list, if I'm not already, I do not claim to believe this. In short, Project Bluebeam is this operation or this conspiracy that is supposed to lead to the implementation of the New World Order by unifying the world under a God that is being created and controlled by the United Nations and NASA. And its main objective is to kind of break down society and stop all religions except for the one that they impose onto us, which will be led by the Antichrist, so that they can control all of the world. Yeah, so let's start with the guy who started this whole thing, Serge Monast. He was an investigative journalist who first brought up the theory of Project Bluebeam in his book, Project Bluebeam, in 1994. He claimed to have received this information by somebody who was working on the inside and had ties with NASA and the UN. So he had buddies that were working in both areas of the world and explained this theory to him, and that's where he is getting this information from. So allegedly in Minecraft, the Canadian government kidnapped his daughter, in an effort to dissuade him from investigating Project Bluebeam. She was never returned. Now, this is not because of his interest into this conspiracy, supposedly. It's because the state got involved because he was homeschooling his kids, and they took him away because he wasn't really homeschooling them. He was just kind of trying to, on paper, manipulate them into believing his conspiracy theory. So the states got involved and put them in a school so they could actually get an education. But theorists and Serge here will claim that it was because he was getting too close to the truth. Serge and another unnamed journalist who allegedly was supporting Serge's endeavors died in 1996 due to heart attacks, even though they never had heart disease, both of them, which is a little sus, which is a little weird. I will give it that. It is a little weird. Obviously, this breeds a lot of speculation, and a lot of theorists believe that they were both killed and, unalived, assassinated, because they were getting too close to the truth and the true intentions of the powers that be. So, we can't talk about Project Bluebeam without talking about the New World Order, the pinnacle of all conspiracy theories, which, if you don't know, is a cabal of the ultra elites of the world that are trying to slowly implement a dystopian future and control everything by a uniformed government that will grant them control over everything. I told you this was going to get intense and really weird. This group is associated with the all-seeing eye that's on the back of a dollar bill, or any conspiracy about, celebrities in their hands, in their eye, and stuff like that. And basically, it's this group that is using propaganda and media to manipulate the playing field for their agenda. And like I said, that's like a cornerstone to a lot of major conspiracy theories. The reason they would be doing this is to eventually lead to a point where they could control the entire world and control everything that everyone does all the time. Now, how are they allegedly doing this in a more specific way? Here's a quote from the Wikipedia. They allegedly do this by using front organizations to orchestrate significant political and financial events, ranging from causing systematic crises to pushing controversial policies at both national and international levels as steps in an ongoing plot to achieve world domination. I'm not gonna say anything. However, in today's world, it kind of seems a little like that might be a thing. I don't know. There are people I can't talk about right now that seem to be, if they were gonna have a new world order, they would definitely be in it. Who is this? They could be the Freemasons, the Illuminati, different religious groups, big business, or it could be all of them. They can all be tied together. The Skull and Bones, big tech, literally any group with power. And I want to hear you guys' thoughts. Who do you think it is? Leave it in the comments. The idea of the New World Order, it started as a really small concept in the 90s, only really perpetuated by two main groups. Right-wing military anti-government groups that were concerned with big government, obviously, and smaller groups of fundamental Christians concerned about the rise of anti-Jesus-ness, I guess. And then through the distrust in the government and government hiccups and the media and so on and so forth, and kind of turning away from a more traditional view and lifestyle, this idea that there's one group that controls everything has gained massive popularity. I mean, nobody trusts the government anymore. Most people don't. How does this apply to Project Bluebeam? I had to establish what it was, because the theory states that this New World Order is going to simulate a second coming of God, whether that be Jesus and Muhammad or whatever, and then use that to push this religion of the Antichrist onto us so that they can control our brains. We're going to get into that more specifically momentarily. Now, this would be a good time to bring up that none of this is real, and that this is going to get really complicated, and there's going to be a lot of theory craft and loopholes to jump through. So strap in. I really can't stress how complicated this gets and how just convoluted it can be at sometimes. And just like any great conspiracy, the believers of this theory say that we are being conditioned by media and TV and everything to be more susceptible to these planned events and to become more controlled up until that point, and that they are slowly conditioning us so that when the reveal happens, we are content and more accepting to it. It's like a soft reveal, basically. So the first kind of step is to have some kind of event that allows them to phase out real money and move towards a electronic-based currency. Now, it would have to be some kind of worldwide disaster that allows them to kind of manipulate how people spend money so that they're not necessarily going to go straight from dollar bills to electrical currents, cryptocurrencies or whatever right out the gate. It's going to be more of having like a middleman to lead into a digitalized world. And this is literally already happening. I don't have to explain it already. I mean, like, dude, I have an app on my phone for my bank. I don't even live in the same state that my bank is in. Like, it's online banking, crypto, like it's kind of already here. This is supposed to start to chip away at our independence from big companies and big bank and the government, because if we have our own physical money with us, then the government and the banks of the world don't control it, I guess, because as we all know, the banks of the world, like if you invest $1,000 into your bank, into your bank account, the bank's gonna go and spend that money on whatever. But then when you go to do, withdraw your money, it'll be there because somebody else put $1,000 into it. That's why there's the memes that say we should all pull our money all at the same time, because the banks won't have that and the whole system will crash because money's not real. I mean, it never was, but it really isn't now. Now, this is a quote from the website. Force anyone with savings to spend or turn in their cash because they understand that people who have money are not dependent upon the people, Everyone has to be 100% dependent on the council for their existence to prevent any kind of independence. The New World Order has already implemented microchips in wild animals, birds, and fish, etc. Why? They want to make certain that people who will not accept the New World Order, will not be able to hunt fish anywhere in the world. If they try, they will be tracked and traced by satellites, then hunted down and imprisoned or killed. This is like the had me in the first half, kind of what the heck is happening, and this is already when it starts to derail as well. Because at first it's like, yeah, I see that the government and the banks are kind of leaning towards more digitalized currency, and that's whatever. But then with the tracking and stuff, it's like, okay, well, we see wearable technologies, our phones, microchips. I mean, Neuralink was testing a bunch of pigs and animals. From what I interpret is that Serge just believes that all animals are going to eventually have microchips. I don't really know if that's what he means, but that seems kind of stupid because they could already track us anyway. I mean, have you seen the level of surveillance that the government has just by satellites? I mean, they don't need to put it in our brain, I don't think. Now, it would make it easier if we all had a device that tracked us 24/7, but I think there are other means. Engineered earthquakes and hoaxed discoveries. This is to basically break down the history that we have come to know so that they can plant information to make the narrative what they want. How they would do this is creating artificial earthquakes that resurface some form of ancient discovery, whether that be some kind of text or whatever, that shows that the history that we know or the past is wrong, and that all of our religious beliefs have errors and are not true. Serge is quoted on saying, "What they want to do is destroy the beliefs of all Christians and Muslims on the planet. To do that, they need some false proof from the far past that will prove to all nations their religions have all been misinterpreted and misunderstood." Now, I don't know why specifically he's pointing out Christians and Muslims. I don't know, because apparently maybe in his mind there aren't other religions in the world, but that's how he be. Now, how are they gonna do this? I'm glad you asked. Let's get a detailed description. HAARP. If you guys watched my last week video, you'll know all about the HAARP conspiracies and what that entails. In short, the HAARP facility in Alaska is used to study the ionosphere. Some people believe that it's used to manipulate the weather and or cause earthquakes and other natural disasters. Originally, it was funded by DARPA, the US Navy, and the US Air Force, and now is owned by the University of Alaska Fairbanks. This is a quote again. Its original purpose was to analyze the ionosphere and investigate the potential for developing ionospheric enhancement technology for radio communications and surveillance. So let's point out some points of interest in regards to HAARP. It is used to generate low frequencies, very low frequencies, extremely low frequencies. It creates an artificial glow, which, if you want to see it as more of a mediocre Northern Lights, that's a good way to look at it. And this has been a target of conspiracy theories since the development of it, basically. I mean, any facility that the government operates in the middle of nowhere will tend to draw the attention of a lot of people. Some points that theorists use or quote a lot is the potential that it could be used as a military weapon, could control the weather, flip the poles, and casually set the entire air on fire or control our minds. this is obviously a key component in the blue beam conspiracy. So if it couldn't get weirder, we're going to now discuss how the governments of the world are going to recreate God. Step 2 is called the Big Space Show in the Sky. Step 2 includes using a giant laser hologram with sound to create a hologram of different gods over different regions of the world, depending on the predominant faith in that area. So India will see Vishnu, the Western world will see Christ, and the Middle East will see Muhammad or Allah, and so on and so forth. This God will speak in all languages, or at least the language that is prominent to the area in which it's hovering over. And the idea that they'll all merge into one, being the Antichrist, and that is what's supposed to convince us to then follow it. And it makes sense. I mean, no, it doesn't, but if there's a lot of extremists when it comes to all religions, and if they think that their God is telling them to do something, they're going to do it. The believers of this theory believe that the Soviets or the Russians have created a highly advanced computer that is fed all human languages and cultures. Serge is quoted saying, "The minute physiopsychological pattern particulars based on their studies of anatomy and electromechanical..." I'm just putting it up on the screen. You can read it. I'm sorry. It's just so complicated and just I can't articulate it at all. This is all done with the goal of creating a messiah that the whole entire world can get behind. Now, I'm not saying I believe this, but AI is getting kind of close. There are people worshiping that thing, and I mean, ChatGPT is pretty cool, and it knows a lot. So, again, you can see how people believe this, or you can start to see the pieces kind of click together, I guess. And you can draw a connection between AI and the whole idea that the Russians or the Soviets or whatever have this supercomputer that knows all the languages and all the cultures and stuff. And yeah, there's a connection there, but there's also a massive conspiracy theory that is derailing into schizophrenia territory. If you couldn't tell, different day, I got distracted and stopped recording, and it's been a while since I started the first section of this, so this is a continuation. New day. So with this whole end of the world hologram thing, once the messiah of any given region shows up, there's going to be a simulated end times that is specific to the area in which certain faiths originate from. So, the Christian end times is different from the Hindu end times, which is different from, the spaghetti monster and Scientology end times. It's all kind of going to be simulated so that the mass population that believes in the end times thinks the end times is actually happening. It's kind of a lot. Big mouthful. I'm sorry. Then, on top of that, to simulate a rapture type of thing where people are taken to heaven or wherever, they are going to have a technology that allows them to, quote, whisk the entire group into Never Never Land to simulate some kind of rapture. And they say that the government has been testing this technology, and how we see it being tested is people being abducted by UFOs and aliens. Is the government actually practicing and perfecting this fake rapture technology? We're hitting all the bells and whistles on this conspiracy. That's why I think this is if it encapsulates everything. We got big government, we got big tech, we got God, we got aliens, and we're gonna have the end of the world. There are very few things other than past civilizations that aren't in here. I mean, we might as well start believing that the hollow earth is going to fit in here somewhere, because there's so much random spiderweb conspiracies all over the place. Bussy. So you're probably wondering, well, then what about the people who don't follow the religion that is predominant in any given region, or they are atheists and don't believe in God at all, and like they see this God and they reject it or something, because that will happen. So to handle those people, two things. One, the infamous they is going to rely on the fact that everyone is going to believe that their God is telling them to do things and that they're right, and they're going to hope and rely on the extremists of those religions to fight and kill off each other, trying to prove that their religion is the correct one. Because, I mean, if you think God is telling you that you need to go spread religion and kill anyone who doesn't believe in it, I mean, look at history, my guy. Like, how many wars have been justified because God said so? You know what I'm saying? And then on top of that, they're going to blast those people with electronic waves to produce thoughts of suicide and self-harm, and so that they kind of take care of themselves, if that makes sense. This is going to happen as the rest of the theory or plan, if you want to call it that, unfolds. So there's going to be massive amounts of death and destruction because of these quote-unquote holy wars and people being blasted with electromagnetic waves to manipulate their brains. That's supposed to then also lower the amount of people on the earth, obviously, because the population will decrease with the amount of destruction and death that's going to happen, that the remaining people will be easier to control and manipulate because they're going to be in midst of this massive holy war between everyone. So the show that's supposedly going to happen is claimed to operate and function by satellites and supercomputers blasting extremely low frequencies, very low frequencies, and just low frequencies into the sky to light it up with whatever image they want, I guess. So this is also done with the idea that people are going to then convert to this new religion because their God is telling them that this new religion is the real one, and then instead of trying to convince them that this new religion is real, they will join it on their own free will because they think whatever they believe in is telling them to switch this new religion. It's very complicated, and I'm very sorry. There is a quote that says, this is from the Serge website, setting loose millions of programmed religious fanatics through demonic possession on a scale never witnessed before. I don't really know what that entirely means, but it seemed like it related to this point in the plan, I guess. I'm assuming it means just the same thing I already said, that all these people are going to be driven mad by, religious fanaticism, and they're going to start killing each other. Telepathic electronic two-way communication. So step 3 and step 2 are happening at the same time, sort of, and are just kind of like one big step, but for presentation purposes and for clarification purposes, they're divided into 2 steps because, why would we want to make this more complicated? Now remember, this is all in Minecraft, and nothing I'm about to say is real. I feel as though I really need to specify that. During this part of the article, I guess, that talks about each step, Lieutenant John Alexander is referenced a lot during this part of the article. He is, quote, retired U.S. Army colonel. I misspelled it. Retired United States Army colonel and infantry officer for much of his career, he is best known as a leading advocate for the development of non-lethal weapons and military applications of the paranormal. So we're diving into what some people might think of the crowd control energy weapon, manipulating people's nervous system type thing without actually hurting them territory. Now, you could also draw ties to mind control and manipulation and stuff like that. And I guess you could say, can you say propaganda is a weapon? I feel like you can say propaganda is a weapon, right? I mean, if I wanted to convince you to, shit your pants or, lick the underside of a bus seat, then like if I were to directly try to influence how you think, could you? I'm going to look into it and then I'll put like a graphic up or something. I don't know. But he has a quote on mind control, which is, if it is possible to feed artificial thought into the multigenic field via satellite, the mind control of the entire planet is not possible. An individual's only resistance would be to constantly question the motivation behind their thoughts and not act upon thoughts which they consider to be outside their own ideological, religious, and moral boundaries. This is a whole topic in and of itself of your thoughts and how you are different from your mind. And if mind control were to happen, we could have a whole philosophical debate on if you're separated from your mind and if your thoughts are, something that are or are not in your own control. And if someone else could control those and influence them, you would have to then almost manually think, I guess you could say. And I guess that is a good practice to have in general, but it would get much more tedious if, let's say, somebody put a microchip in your brain and was trying to manipulate the way you think. I'm not saying Neuralink is tied into this, but like every time mind control happens, I can't not think of putting chips in your brain. I'm not saying that's what it's gonna be. I'm just saying that I can't stop thinking about it, because your brain is just a bunch of electromagnetic impulses and all that kind of stuff. So if there was a way to influence that, you would have to try to, it'd be kind of like a mental illness. I'm not saying that you can, I'm mentally ill and it's very difficult. And I'm not saying that, just think better thoughts is gonna fix your problem, because it's definitely not gonna. But sometimes you have to recognize a thought that is, filled with anxiety or depression or whatever, and do your best to negate that thought and go almost operate around it. And I feel like if someone's trying to control your mind and from his perspective and based on his quote, is saying that you would have to almost treat it like a mental illness, I would suspect, and almost have to double back every time you think and have to question almost everything that you do to make sure that it lines up with what you genuinely think. And that's going to get to like some massive like schizo, who am I? Like, I can't tell which thoughts are real. Am I the one thinking? On the floor. Basically, if I'm understanding this section correctly, massive amounts of brainwashing. mass delusion, mass control, brain wavelength, telepathy, electromagnetic influence. You know what I mean? Like, just a key component in this section is being able to beam artificial thoughts to pretty much everyone and make everyone think what the quote-unquote antichrist or the they want them to think, by using these different frequencies and different electromagnetic pulses directed at people's noggins to, you basically are treating the mind as a computer and figuring out what input to put in it to manipulate the output of that computer. Does that make sense? Now, this is going to be a sort of a rehash, but basically they're going to, while Antichrist is in the sky, they're also going to be trying to beam everyone's brains with these technologies to also try to convince those that are initially convinced to convert to the religion and or behave in alignment, with the newfound world order, I guess you could say. Each person obviously has a different brain, but if you were to try to manipulate everyone all of the time, constantly, all at once, you would have to somehow be able to understand how that specific person's brain works on at least a basic level. And because you would have to use inputs and frequencies that are unique to that person. and that would require a ton of information. And now this is some theory craft, so strap in and hold on. You could argue that algorithms are, I mean, how many lawsuits and how many news articles have you seen about, you know, big tech collecting all this information through our phones and through the internet about us? And, you know, the algorithms are designed to figure out what you like and don't like, and how, and potentially how you think, and suggest things to you that are more fit to who you are and what you want. And if you're kind of already in that groove with the algorithm, it could hypothetically start to suggest slightly more, what's the word I'm looking for? Suggestive? I can't, what? Oh! Basically what I'm trying to say is that once you're in the groove of the algorithm, it would be easy to manipulate you into thinking other things. So, how are they going to do this? Well, if you watched my HARP video from whenever I uploaded that, I talk about patent US 6506148B2. And basically what this states, because there's a huge, massive paragraph that describes what it does. And in simple terms, basically through very low frequencies, TV, computers, and I'm assuming anything with a screen, our nervous system can be manipulated, even if the images / frequencies that pulse on the screen are accompanied with different images. So it's kind of like, here's the main image, and then here's also frequencies that are being delivered through that to be beamed at you. Even if, let's say right now I put up a picture of a cat and you like it, but that's just like the envelope that, or the Trojan horse that gets you to pay attention, so that the frequencies and the message that's trying to get across is being delivered into your brain. Even if you are not directly looking at the thing, the frequency, if it is strong enough, can still penetrate through your body into your brain. And our nervous system, which picks up on all of this, controls how we think, controls our body, our mind, how we feel, all of it. And, you know, if this sounds familiar, it's because this is what subliminal messaging is. I'm feeling like I'm losing it a little bit. Like, this is, I just was starting to think about like what I was just saying. And you can look this up on Google Patents if you'd like and kind of dive a little deeper into it. But basically it's showing how even through VHS tapes and all the way up to the internet and what computer you're using, they could use these things to manipulate our perception of reality, basically. If I understand what Serge is saying in this article and whatnot, he's saying that they're going to basically try to enslave everyone using this technology to manipulate our thoughts so that we do what they want us to do, but we think it's because we want to do it. And then he goes on to explain what he thinks this technology is being used for currently. And here's an immaculate quote: "To torture and murder citizens who belong to organizations who oppose the development and deployment of nuclear weapons, and to create a race of slave cult automatons." I love a good conspiracy and all that, but how do you like draw yourself to those kind of thoughts? You know what I'm saying? Like, and then like, he did interviews and said stuff like this, and it's like, dude has to be so confident in his beliefs, or delusional, or both. I don't know. Serge then kind of presents another idea of how to look at how they're going to brainwash us, supposedly, is sort of kind of like cognitive conditioning, by playing on like the reward versus punishment mechanism in our brains, like training human beings to have like a natural response over time to certain things, and that the reward is what they want us to do, and the punishment of not doing that obviously then is associated. Basically, it's just like giving us a treat to do what they want, just like how you give a dog to do a trick, and then eventually they can do the trick without the treat, and that's basically what they want us to do over time. using whatever means necessary. Then he kind of goes on this massive spiel that takes up like half the article about big tech and the government, and it doesn't really go anywhere. He just kind of starts rambling on for a really long time. And I guess this isn't really important now that I think about it. So a concept that I came across during the research for this episode was the MHE, or the microwave hearing effect. Now, not like you're listening to the microwave talk to you, because if you do, I mean, you probably have schizophrenia, you should probably go to the doctor. This is basically what theorists call voice to skull, or V2K. I don't really know why the K. Maybe voice to kill. I don't know. Is that a movie or a book? I don't know. But it's basically being able to implement thoughts and sounds into people's brains artificially. Here's a definition of what that means. The microwave auditory effect, or the Frey effect, consists of the human perception of sound induced by pulsed or manipulated radio frequencies. The perceived sounds are generated directly inside the human head without the need of any receiving electronic device. This was discovered in World War II by Alan Frey, who discovered that he was able to slow and speed up the heart rates of frogs using these radio waves and manipulation of their nervous system through this microwave hearing effect. And then Dr. Robert Becker, an orthopedic surgeon best known for his research and studies into biocybernetics, did similar studies which, quote, showed that it is technically feasible to produce heart attacks with rays designed to penetrate the human chest. Now, upon hearing this, you might remember earlier in the video we talked about how Serge, the main proponent of this theory, and his friend or coworker or whatever, another journalist, both died mysteriously from heart attacks. A lot of people who believe this theory kind of point to these studies and this effect for their cause of death. And then also theorists believe that a more advanced technology, or that technology was discovered in World War II, and then from that point on it's only gotten more advanced, and they're using and going to use this microwave artificial schizophrenia ray on people during this fake end times. I don't mean to like burst the bubble on that too, because it does sound like an interesting concept. However, a lot of people who research this topic are seen as kind of more fringe and out there. A lot of them are self-published, and their works are not necessarily the most reliable sources of information. Alan Ducker, a physician out of California, claims that these websites and forums where people are discussing these kind of topics tend to blur the lines between message boards and supportive conversational groups to just enforcement of mental issues and other problems. From what I've gathered, this idea is there, but the perpetuators of it also are not the most reliable people. But also you could say that it's just them being discredited so that they, are not taken seriously, so that the government or the Illuminati can get away with their shenanigans and take over our brains and just inject the fluoride right into our faces and just, make us eat dog ass. I don't know. So I want to talk about my favourite part of this endeavour, part 4. A simulated alien invasion. Yeah, so the next part is about a alien invasion. There's a 3-stage alien invasion that the governments of the world are going to fake and employ onto the world while the rapture is happening, at the same time, while they're beaming electromagnetic waves into our faces so that they can control what we think, so we become slaves. I've kind of broken this down in very simple terms because it's ridiculous. Step 1 is basically as Serge claims, I don't believe this, all Minecraft, that the UN is going to fake a massive alien invasion, Independence Day type, just catastrophe over all major cities, and use that to justify nuclear war against the fake aliens. and then they're going to come in and say not to use nuclear bombs. Seems fucking contradiction up the ass. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense, but none of it really does. Side note, that this whole alien invasion is going to happen just a few hours after step 2 of this whole thing. So step 4 is happening with step 2 before step 3 along the sides of all the steps. Got it? And step 2 of the 3-step plan of step 4 is basically the alien invasion. Actually, this isn't really a step, it's more of like what they want to happen in Serge's eyes, is that they hope, Serge's thoughts, not mine, that the alien invasion is going to coincide with the Christian rapture, so that the aliens are seen as like this divine force to come help them and fight the demons and save them from the massive rapture of, hell on earth. We got fake aliens fighting fake demons because the Antichrist wants everyone to be enslaved for whatever reason. If you didn't think it could get any more insane, wait till you hear about the ghosts that are going to be living in our appliances. Alongside all of this, supposedly they're going to use all these different internet cables and cybernetic compartments and connections and shit to employ supernatural forces that are going to, what did it say? They're going to send out these supernatural forces to all of these household appliances to convince people that things are haunted, I guess, or that there's some kind of spiritual horror going on, to try to push mass hysteria and delusions and people, killing themselves and all that. The point of this is basically, I keep saying this, but they want to try and, God, I just feel like so beat dead after this. Like, it's just like one, like, this is so schizophrenic. I just don't, just pick a lane. It's like he was like, okay, there's this theory, and I'm going to put every other theory, and I'm going to do way too many drugs and think about it all at one time, and I just hurt, and I don't get it. And it's just like, bruh, like, how many fucking conspiracy theories do you need? I just don't understand, like, how much more you can fit in here. You know what I'm saying? Like, we already have so much to deal with. Might as well just nuke the planet. It'd be easier to blow up the planet. So what happens if you say no? What if you're like, fuck that, and I don't want to do that because I don't believe in ghosts or anything. I want to fight the aliens and the Antichrist at the same time. I want to be a third party in here. Well, that sucks for you, because Serge has some very specific details on what happens when you don't follow the Antichrist of the New World Order. And I'm going to quote him again, because I know I've said a lot of quotes here, but I think hearing it directly from the website, or that is supposedly his voice, just going to shine some light on his mental state and where he was when he thought of this. All people will be required to take an oath to Satan with a ritual initiation to enter the New World Order. And it's like that right there. Okay, let's just dissect that real quick. What? We're gonna have the Antichrist pretend to be God, but then it's like we're gonna also have Satan along with aliens and ghosts and demons, and it's just like, people who don't comply will be categorized as follows. There are 7 categories. Christian children will be kept for human sacrifice or sex slaves. Prisoners to be used in medical experiments. Prisoners to be used in live organ banks. Healthy workers are enslaved in labor camps. Uncertain prisoners in the International Re-Education Center will then have to repent on television and learn to glorify the New World Order. They will be sent to the International Execution Center, and the 7th category is unknown. So now we have an international, world, global execution center So that's pretty lit. That's pretty neat. Why do all this? I don't know, dude. I think the whole point of this whole shindig is a really elaborate way for the powers that be to want to control everyone and have some kind of like robotic slave army for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't really know what the whole obsession with like the world being controlled under one government, and like I get that like the infringement on freedoms and stuff, but what if there was like a big government that controlled the world that was like nice? Why can't we? I mean, obviously it's not looking that way ever, but like why can't we enjoy that? Why can't we think about that? You know what I'm saying? Like, what if there was a new world order that wanted to give me free puppies and like pay for my health care and, you know, allow me to go to college? That'd be fun. Why don't we push for that instead of schizophrenic alien rapture demon wars? That'd be kind of cool. What if we push those ideas instead? That'd be neat. What do I think about all this? I think it's ridiculous. I think there is some bad shit going on in the world, obviously, and I think that that patent exists, you know, trying to manipulate people's brains and shit. And if you watch my HARP video, I think there is similar things to be said about this theory, except I really don't think they're gonna try to fake the rapture and have aliens fight demons. Like, that's not gonna happen. I think that's the dumbest shit ever. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's funny. I like talking about it because it's like so insane that somebody was convinced enough to write books on it and like talk about it extensively his whole life up until he died, and then now there are people who still believe it. And it's like, I love me a good conspiracy theory. I really do. I love that shit. But I think there are more effective, easier ways to take over the world than mass rapturing and all this other, like I said in the HARP video, just use social media. I mean, we have like the two halves of the world are becoming more and more extreme, and there are very few left in the middle. And it's like, once you have, I mean, it's just a nutcase, and I feel like I have a massive headache right now, so I'm just gonna cut it off here. I hope you guys got some kind of entertainment value out of this. If you have any suggestions for future topics that you want discussed or researched or anything like that, I would love to have like a discussion in the comments about what you all want to see. So just let me know.